Thanks for clicking play on this episode of The Juggle is Real. I'm Andryanna, and gosh, this episode is so beautiful. And today's guest is someone who truly embodies the heart of what we talk about here on The Juggle is Real. You know, the messy and the beautiful real life behind the highlight reel. And gosh, I was in tears. My guest was in tears. Like, there's just so much realness in this conversation. And I think, if you're clicking play on the topic of finding enoughness in a world of more, that you're really going to love this conversation. My guest today is Barbara Burgess. She's an author, an executive, a mom of two, and unapologetic dark chocolate enthusiast who has made it her mission to help people step off the endless treadmill of hustle, comparison, and distraction through her consulting work at Corluma, her one-woman show, and now her new book called Enough, Finding Peace in a World of Distractions, Hustle, and Expectations. Barbara shares simple but powerful ways to come back to yourself and remember that you were never missing anything in the first place. She is so honest and refreshingly real. And in our conversation, we are diving into how to say the small no's, why chasing self-improvement isn't always the answer, and how we can continue to protect our peace without apologizing for it. So if that sounds good to you, let's dive right in. This is the Juggle is Real podcast. I hope you feel seen, that you realize your worth, lighten your load, and prioritize your own needs. As we hear from leading experts and well-known faces in the wellness, entrepreneurship, education, and motherhood space, I hope you gain insights, proven practices, and learn actionable tools to help you enjoy the juggle of work, family, and everything in between with a little less stress and a lot more ease, joy, and fun. Most of all, I hope you find what you need to simplify, streamline, and supercharge your own journey of better balance and self-love. Are you with me? Let's get started. This episode of The Juggle is Real is supported by Lips and Lines Plus in Sudbury, Ontario. Okay, I have to tell you about something that I recently tried, and I honestly am obsessed with it. It is called the VAMP facial or salmon DNA facial. And it is this incredible non-invasive treatment that I had done at Lips and Lines Plus here where I live in Sudbury, Ontario. So if you want to picture this, it's a microneedling treatment paired with a powerful serum that includes vitamins, amino acids, minerals, and PDRN, which is salmon DNA. And I know it sounds a little wild, fishy, if you catch my drift, but it's honestly skin science at its finest. It helps with hydration, skin texture, smoothing fine lines, and just really brings that glow back to your skin. And, let me tell you, it's going to be real here. After 40 years old, 3 kids, all of the juggling and arenas that we was in this past winter, my skin was ready for this treatment. Lips and Lines Plus really is my go-to. They combine science and art to create an advanced aesthetic treatment that are completely tailored to what your goals are. Whether you're looking for subtle enhancements, you want smoother skin, or just a bit of a confidence boost, your experience is private, professional, and totally pressure-free. The team is amazing. Shout out to Holly, who did mine. They're just honest and knowledgeable and up to date on all of the latest in skin health and aesthetics. I felt super taken care of, and I left feeling really refreshed, I just feeling really good. So right now they're having a beautiful Mother's Day promotion where this treatment, which is regularly $500, the VAMP, aka Salmon DNA Facial, is now $375 from now until May 11th Plus, you get a complimentary neck treatment added from now until May 11th. So, once again, the promo for Mother's Day Salmon DNA facial on sale for $375 plus the complimentary neck treatment from now until May 11th. And additionally, if you purchase any lip filler treatment, you can get a complimentary lip flip Botox treatment. There's also 20% off all skincare and sunscreen products from May 3rd to 9th. And there are gift cards available online or in store, which are perfect for Mother's Day. So definitely check them out at lipsandlines.ca. That's lips, letter N, lines.ca, lipsandlines.ca. And be sure to follow them on socials for all of the latest skincare tips and treatments. Now let's get back to the episode. Barbara, welcome to The Juggle is Real. How are you? How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well. And as your title says, always juggling all the things.
Aren't we? And that's why I'm so glad we're having this conversation and really talking about finding enoughness, because for so many of us, we are juggling so many things and we're often feeling like we're not enough, or that we have to keep doing in order to feel like we are enough. And so that's why this chat is going to be, I think, just so wonderful. Before we get into those juicy bits, I am really interested in you and your journey, because I mean, it seems like you've worn so many hats: an executive, of course, a mother, a performer, consultant, an author. I mean, looking back, where do you think, or what version of yourself first started wrestling with the idea of enoughness? Talk to us about your journey and how that sort of came to be.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about it is that it was always there. I just wasn't aware of it, right? And I say not aware of it. I did the career. I did the thing one is supposed to do. I got the degree. I graduated. I got the job. I did all those things in the logical order. And at the same time, I was always a seeker, in the sense of I was always interested in beyond the things we could see, like what else is out there, what matters, those kinds of questions. But it always felt like a compartmentalized thing separately, like a little escape to get away from, or to have a relief from the life and the expectation and all those kinds of things. And so for me, this journey with enough, as a true, character in my life, as a sense of something that's really entered into my life, was just about 3.5 years ago. And so, when I started to feel her presence in my life in a deeper way, just this sense of, oh my goodness, the way it is could be not only just fine, but gorgeous, wonderful, divine, impeccable, right? So despite the whole long journey, that was a sense I got recently. And so my journey of not enough has almost been a bit of a retrospective. I feel like, the veil that's covering my eyes keeps getting pulled back. It's layers and layers and layers, to the point where I really realized that, I had constructed a lot of what I did and my choices around not enough, right? And that starts right from the beginning. It's, what you should study, what you should graduate with, what job you should get, how many kids you should have, what your house should look like. All of that, it was very driven by comparison to other people, what I saw out there, what the expectation was, which I think is really common for most of us. And it really took sort of a break in my pattern and routine to create something else. And that was, what happened about, 3-ish years ago, where, I had given notice at my last job. I hadn't moved, started building the thing that I'm doing now. And the way I described it is like there were cracks in the sidewalk. And all of a sudden, in those tiny little cracks, life could grow. And I think, again, we walk by the sidewalks all the time, not realizing these little seeds, this life is like trying to emerge. We step over it, we pass by it. And so there was just enough there that I started having these real life experience with this sense of enough. And, I think it's a little sobering, I'm in my mid-50s, but to look and think, wow, just now, like where were you all my life, And but I think it's because not enough was such a strong character in my life, comparing, contrasting every move I made, it was difficult to have space for this other sense, right? And so it was really the not enough became a stark contrast once enough had stepped into my life a little more. And again, I had a number of very concrete experiences that led to that, place. But, my heart now is filled with so much joy and possibility of how much enough exists around us, in us, with us, in a relationship. Like you and I having this conversation right now, I feel that sense of fullness. I feel the sense that wherever this goes is fine. We get to be together. What a gorgeous, beautiful experience that we two humans who don't even live in the same place, might never have crossed paths, have this opportunity to commune together right now and see where it takes us. To me, that is a priceless gift that maybe in the past would have been something to do towards an end, but it's not anymore. So it's a little abstract, but it has been, I would say, the not enough. He's everywhere, absolutely everywhere. I had a moment yesterday, again, of as a parent, of talking to my kid about another kid's parents, and all of a sudden, like, they do this, they do that, they da da da, and there's that not enough voice, like, I should have done that, I should have already done that, I should be doing that, and like to really watch that voice amp up, turn up the volume, and then to look over and go, I hear you, bud. I got you. You're screaming over there. And, we've started to craft a different life over here, and you're not driving anymore. I see you. I recognize you. I understand you're, probably trying to do your best to make sure that we get through this whole life experience well, but you're not my focal point anymore.
That's so good. I love that so much. And I love sort of how you're referencing the sidewalk and there being cracks, and it just made me think of that famous quote that there are cracks in everything, right? And that's how the light gets in.
Yeah.
And this notion of not even that there are imperfections, but just embracing the what is, and allowing that flaws or maybe hardships, or just seeing it under a different lens, and knowing that there's so much growth there, and there's so much beauty, and all we have to do is allow it to shine in, instead of trying to cover it up and fix it and make it so it doesn't look like it's there anymore, which I think is often what we've been taught to do. And that's why I love this book, because we are hearing more about enoughness these days, but it can feel abstract, and you've noted that, but it really does seep into our everyday. Is there, you just shared this story with your son, and comparing, and it's so easy for kids to do, right? Because they're so present in the moment. If they see a lollipop and they don't have one, like I have a 4-year-old,
Yes,
like all he
exactly.
wants is the lollipop,
Right.
it's not enough until he gets the lollipop. But are there any moments sort of throughout this journey where you personally struggled with that feeling of not enough? And then how did you work through it so that you could see the cracks and let the light shine through?
Yeah. And by the way, struggled and struggle. Like, and I,
Sure.
maybe struggle is not even the right word anymore, but part of, allowing myself to have the experience of enough is allowing not enough's voice to be there. Right. And I think to this point, very practically, and I'll give an exact example. My body, right? My body's not the size I want it to be. It's not the shape I want it to be. I'm wearing these pants yesterday, and I'm mad because a year ago my belly wasn't sticking out. Why is my belly sticking out of these pants? Like, I can get just so frustrated about that. And there was a time, it was probably like 3 weeks ago, I had been looking for something I had written, and I have an online journal, and I was searching it, and all these entries came up. It took me down this total wormhole of looking at all these journals, entries I'd had, and I realized how much of them, so many of them, were about like my anger at my body, the inadequacy of it, how it's not the shape, blah blah blah, like this, like terrible, like, and just seeing the quantity of time, of my energy and life resources that I have spent criticizing whatever it is. And I think about, and it's, I also have a daughter. And so she's a teen, and you look at the moments right now, like she can find in a second, I think her body is stunning and beautiful, and she can find every single thing that's problematic. And I think, boy, if you could time travel, right? And you go back to that 14, 13-year-old where you felt inadequate, and you could say, oh my goodness, you have no idea. Like, I'm moved,
Mhm.
like how magnificent you are. If I could just talk to you and tell you, like, you're fantastic, like every part of you, right? So sometimes I play this game with myself, and I'm like, okay, if I were looking back on this one, you know, if I were in those end of days moments and I didn't have the mobility I had, I would find it a treasure that I can walk on my feet without pain. I would
Mhm.
find it like an amazing miracle to feel as agile in my body as I do right now, right? And so you think about all of that life force, so that not enough voice right there with my body every day all the time. The beauty of the practicality of doing something different is because this sense of enough has entered my life, I get to notice and I get to reframe. And that's, you know, when you talk about practical steps, like it's not a magic overnight pill. It's directly doing something contrary to that, right? So, to me, not enough as a character. I see him and I see him screaming and kicking his legs. So, recognizing, like hearing the voice and making it distinct from me. You know, I think so much our identity is fused in that not enough that we have to like pull it apart. So, we pull it apart and say, you know, you are a character. I see you and I hear what you're saying. And there are other choices. So, I can look at that character and say, you know, you get to have whatever little thing you want to say. I don't think I'm going to take that voice away. Maybe I will by by the end of days. But I'm like, in the meantime, I'm turning down your volume and I'm going to go over here, right? So it's like recognizing it, hearing the voice, name it directly, and then having alternate spaces to go to. And again, it's to me, it's reframing is that next step, right? So whether that reframing is a fast forward, you know, to other moments, whether it's looking at what is really beautiful and impeccable about, you know, the time I'm living in, or it could be just reframing in the sense of saying, listen, life is so precious, right? We have these micro moments. How are you spending your energy right now, honey? Like, really, is it going to be to contrast to something else that's irrelevant to you? Like, is that really the best use? You know, and it doesn't take a whole lot in the moment, but it takes a lot of repetition of that where that becomes a muscle because again, you realize, you know, at least for me, how much of my time had been spent thinking that not enough was me. And so truly to begin to pull those thoughts away and say, that's something separate. That's just some cha-cha I learned that's reinforced in our society everywhere you turn. It's what keeps consumerism alive. You know, again, bless it, bless all the benefits it could offer. And there are other pathways. And I think that's what's been so empowering is when I stop, I pull that voice away, I reframe it, all of a sudden, you know, my visual is like the field opens up, the field of possibilities opens up. So rather than having to go down that track I would have had to go down to, which, oh my gosh, let me cover up my body. Let me figure out a way. Let's squeeze it into something. Let's put 10 things, you know, so that I could be acceptable to whatever that would be. Rather than doing all of that, I get to just have a different opinion about it. And all of a sudden, there are like literally, you know, 40 different choices I could make in that moment. And, you know, my heart lifts, it expands, and I can choose all of those. But when I'm in that narrow space of not enough, it is like being in a prison. There's only one way, there's only one thing that's acceptable, and it looks a certain way, and I have to do that, you know, rather than kind of breaking the chains of that. But I think recognizing the voice and reframing it in the moment, like that's a muscle to build, you know, over and over and over again. Because, you know, just even to what you said, it's not like that voice is gone, but I have the muscle to turn down the volume that I didn't have before. And that's been the huge gift. And what I keep uncovering is the more I do that, the more is available to me.
So beautiful, Barbara. And it's, you know, what you're saying is it's not about stopping the voice of not enough, but, you know, this presence of our ego trying to take over, but recognizing it, and awareness really is that first step. And so knowing that the first step is just recognizing, like, you know, okay, that's fine. You say what you want to say,
Yeah.
but I now have the ability to shift in
Yeah.
the moment. And you know, it's going to take some efforting at first, right? Where you're rewiring your brain so that
Yes.
there are new neural pathways, so that there's a new direction that you can take. Instead of just believing the not enough voice, you now have a deeper understanding of like your true self and what is actual and true, not, you know, what is this not enough trying to convince me of,
Well,
which
and to your point about the neural pathways, right? To recognize that those neural pathways that I have of not enough, those are super highways. It is so
Hmm.
easy to fall into those because I've repeated them. I've run over that ground so many times. And so to understand that when I make that new moment, you said you have to effort or do a little bit. Yes, because it's uncomfortable. Like I'm literally, plowing a new path. So in those first times, it is uncomfortable. But if I plow that path over and over and over again, then that sense of enough can become my super highway. But I'm not living in an illusion that that's oh, well, let me just, whatever it is, which is why I think it's okay to let not enough be there because I find for myself when I try to like squash it, it's, meditation. If you try to not think of something, I'm sorry, good luck. Instead, like, let the thoughts come in and go out, but I can't stop them from coming, right?
And which
Um,
is why so many people struggle because they think,
yeah,
I'm not allowed to think. And then when the thoughts come in, they're like, I'm doing it wrong. Oh, I suck at this. Oh, I hate this. This is
yes,
terrible. Which is also great because with what you're saying with the voice of not enough, it is kind of a lot of, in the everyday moments, looking at things like boundaries and those practical angles that we can take. And I really love your idea of the small nose versus the big nose.
yeah.
Can you walk us through this? Maybe give us an example of a small no or a big no and how the tiny choices like that can really completely shift how we are feeling every single day.
Yeah, I think there's so much beautiful work that's out now about boundaries, which I think are so important for women and so important for parents and moms because, so much of our identity is caught up in how we serve and what we do, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I've cognitively known that for decades, I'm sure, right? But as I started to have this sense of enough more, it really made it super clear to me what that meant in a day-to-day practical way, right? So you can talk about, well, you need to draw a boundary. And I would say like the big no's are easier actually, because the big no's, I had to work on the big no's when I was younger. I used to just people please and whatever anybody wanted, I was going to do. So I had done some initial, reflection and things to not do that. And so if somebody says something that's a huge affront to my values or does something that's a big violation or something like that, I can muster the courage to say, no, let's not do that,
Sure.
right? So that's a phase in the process. But what I found was that without honoring, recognizing, and claiming the little no's, it's like death by a thousand paper cuts, right? And so, the contrast to the little no's are the little yeses. So it's like, oh, sure, I'll do that thing for you. Yes, I'll store that tchotchke that is a hand me down that I don't like. Yes, I'm happy to add on to my volunteerism this other thing I'm going to do. Of course, I'll do this thing for my kid, the parent, whatever it is. But I feel like, with every one of those little yeses, if we're not careful, like our life is so cluttered. I mean, it really is like hoarding. It is, there's no space for anything else. And we didn't notice, it's like by one little yes, one little yes, one little yes, all of a sudden there's no time for me to even feel myself, be connected to myself, be myself. And so those little yeses, we need to make more little no's, right? We need to make the small no's. And so, it things like an invitation somewhere. Maybe somebody invites you somewhere and, oh, will you join me at this fundraiser? Well, do I really want to be there? Do I go? Does it resonate? Where is my energy right now? Am I exhausted
Mhm.
this week? Would I be better off napping or binging a show? Or is it the right thing for me to be out and meeting people? What would nourish me to the fullest? And so we don't give ourselves the pause to say, wait a minute, right? It's just almost reflexive. Well, they invited me, I should say yes. And
I
so
feel bad.
I feel bad, right? Or they came to my fundraiser thing, I invited them to. So there's like this tit for tat, like we have to have the perfect exchange. And so instead to be like, no, thank you for the invite, right? And that's where that part of the book I talk about beautiful boundaries, zero apologies, because I really think, again, particularly as women and parents, we get too trained into, because here's why, here's what my conflict is, da 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 da. Like, no, 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 we don't owe anyone an explanation on anything. We are the captain of our ship, right? And so to say no, but thank you, because I do love being invited. I love that you thought of me. I love the inclusion, but it's no, and it's interesting. Again, this is you said it, but moment by moment, day by day kind of thing. And so I had a friend a couple of weeks ago that knows me enough now and knows that I've worked on these things. But um, there was an event we were both invited to, and she'd asked me if I was going, and I said no. And she was just clearly, I was a text exchange, right? And then she was so funny. She texted back and she goes, um, are you not going because you have a conflict, or is it just a no? Like she knew because she's been around me
Is that
enough. And
just
I'm
a
like,
complete sentence?
it's
Yeah.
just a complete sense. And it was more, she was curious for herself. She's in this inquiry, she's in this journey and was wondering, and I said to her, because again, we're having this more open dialogue. I said, this is one that were I available, I wouldn't be going. There are other ones that I'd love to be able to make that event, but I just can't, right? But
Sure.
that's mine. That's a private, sort I get to do. If I wish to share it, I can. But those little tiny no's, or again, I've had people give me books, and it's a lovely thing if it's a book you want to read and they've thought of it, you can read it. Or if you're never going to read it, you can gift it away to someone. Like we don't need to hang on to this because someone gave it to us, right? Because
Mhm.
otherwise, then our shelves are filled up or whatever it is. It could be our shelf, our calendar, our life force. But it's those I find to be the much trickier ones, the much more nuanced ones, the much more dangerous ones that sneak up on you and build up. And again, the sense of like, no, I'm fine just the way I am. My choice to just do something or not do something is completely good as it is. It requires nothing else. That is that sense of enoughness as well. And what I found is as we plant those little small no's, right, it does become a beautiful, kind of like a garden boundary. It grows into something more that's authentic to us. It's not a problem. It's not putting a steel wall between us and other people. It's making a gorgeous garden hedge that fits the beauty of what I'm trying to grow, right? But to me, those little no's took a lot more practice because the big no's were easier. They were so obvious. And the little no's come with all the guilt and the shame and the explanation and all the other stuff.
This is so good because I know the listeners, like there are so many things I'm feeling overwhelmed about, and just like that mental load can be really overwhelming. But if we
Yeah.
really think about it, there has to be at least half a dozen things that really, like, do you have to be doing that? Or
Yeah.
and where we are investing our energy really
Yeah.
comes down to it. And a topic that I've been discussing a lot on the podcast this spring is protecting your peace
Yes.
and choosing peace in the midst of chaos. And I'm Canadian. We just had an election, and all of these different things, and dealing with toxic people or situations that we are not comfortable with. And so your idea of bulletproof grace is really beautiful because it's so easy to either lash out or shrink back when faced with toxic behavior or things that make us feel less than or uncomfortable. So how do you personally stay grounded and with that grace when someone's trying to pull you out of your lane or get you out of protecting that peace? What would you
Yeah.
recommend?
Well, and it's funny, having listened to some of your episodes recently, I was like, this is so timely in the sense of, my book subtitle is Finding Peace in a World of Distractions, Hustle, and Expectations. Like, it's exactly that, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
those distractions, hustle, expectations, and toxicity, they aren't going anywhere as far as I can see. I would love for them to
Mm-hmm.
disappear, maybe in our children's lifetimes, but so far, alive and present. And so to that point, and you referenced it as well, like one of the things I learned strongly about was staying in my energy lane. And the visual I give in the book is like imagine that like imagine this sun and we're all a ray, right? And it's like every, sun's ray is pointing outward, and when we're in our energy lane, that ray, it's like we're on a moving sidewalk. Things come, we meet amazing people, it's beautiful, et cetera. Yes, there's bumps and challenges, but they're growthful, all those kinds of things. And so it's almost like when we're in our lane, we're on this moving sidewalk. But next to us is another energy ray and another energy ray, somebody else's lane. And they're over there doing their thing. Where I get into real trouble is when I start popping into theirs. Right. And oftentimes, like, and I'm going to go to the toxic example. I've had plenty of those real life experiences, in work situations and, friendship situations. But it's literally like those toxic personalities can't wait for you to pop out of your energy lane. It's like they're literally fishing in your lane, like, woo, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
put the little bait over there. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll jump out of that and be furious at them and doing whatever it is. But you have this sense of like, you're out of your energy lane when you've made your big stand, you're da 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 da, but like you still feel riled like nobody's business. That doesn't mean there's not valid anger for stuff. I don't mean that. But it's like, wait a minute, how has this now benefited me? Right. And I had somebody that used to be in my life that no longer is in my life who loved to fight. And I thought it was good growth for me to learn how to assert myself and fight. And probably at some point in time it was, right? So I have that mama bear aspect. I can do that kind of thing, but he lived for it, right? And so we would get done with a fight and his comment would be, "Oh, that was great, da da da." And I would leave those interactions like, "No, that wasn't great. I feel terrible. Like I don't feel good.
Yeah.
This wasn't like he got a charge out of it and I wasn't." Well, ends up not a surprise, narcissistic personality, yada yada yada. And so that trained me in this bulletproof grace. So what I realized was I didn't actually have to leave my energy lane. He could
Mm.
choose whatever behavior, that he wanted to do. Where I got in trouble for myself was popping out, right? So I didn't have to fight him. So he might say something that was very triggering, right? Very outrageous, very new, would just get me, right? And
Mhm.
I learned that I had a lot of choices to make, so I could, see that that was happening. It's almost like you're moving in slow-mo. I see that temptation and I'm like, you know what? I could take that, but boy, that's not going to serve me. No, thank you, right? So he
Mhm.
might, want to, get all riled up and I'd say, you know what, this isn't working for me. I'm going to hang up now. If later
Mm.
you're at a different space, I'm happy to reconnect. But at this moment, blah, blah, blah. So it's literally like I could withdraw my energy from that transaction. The grace part is I didn't have to yell back. I didn't have to like stoop to his behavior level in order to do it, right? So I could hang on to what's treasuring the most to me, my authenticity, my value set, all of those kinds of things without going over there. What was fascinating as I started to learn this is how much I would get sucked into other people's stuff all the time, right? It's like a friend's
Yes.
telling me about their drama or this person has this thing, and it is if I'm in the situation and I want to go battle it for them. So that, realizing like that was almost addictive for me at a certain level.
Mhm.
And so the bulletproof grace idea is someone could shoot a bullet. I imagine I have this armor on my chest and it's like gorgeous, feminine, stylish. Of course, it can't be, clunky and unattractive. But somebody could shoot a bullet at me, like they're intentionally taking a shot, doing a thing, trying to hook me in, and I can just let it bounce off. I could just let it fall. So that's the bulletproof, right? You can throw anything. I don't have to grab it. I don't have to be injured by it. I don't have to whatever. And the grace part is my response. My response can still be value aligned with me. Even if I'm furious, I could do that in a way that felt authentic. Like, you know what you just said I find incredibly offensive. I'm don't need to be in this situation. Like this is just not working for me, right? And this is where the bulletproof grace and those boundaries become like so integrated. So that also became a muscle of using that bulletproof grace. But I think a big part of it, and you said it already, that protecting of your energy, right? As enough came into my life, I started to realize what a precious resource my energy is, my life
Mhm.
force, my attention, my care, my love. Like these are resources that I have that unfortunately we don't live in a world right now that values them. If it does, who we think of as millionaires and billionaires would be role reversed, I will say, in many, many cases, not all the cases, but in many. So we don't live necessarily in that kind of planet. So the question is, can I value that energy, that time, that care, my attention, and give it that pricelessness it deserves? And if I can, then I get to choose to be protective of it, just like I would my money, just like I would, like, do I want to invest in that thing or not?
Mm.
And I get to choose. This was one of the phrases that came early in my own development is I get to choose. So all of my friends could be going to an event they can't wait to go to. And if it doesn't feel right to me, if I picture myself there and my energy feels drained, I could choose not to go. I need no logic to do it whatsoever. I can just decide for myself that I'm going to conserve this resource. So, holding on to that possibility. And again, it doesn't mean I need to be a jerk about it. It doesn't mean I need to get caught up in somebody else's drama. And part of that with the toxicity is realizing, like, so I do a lot of coaching for executives, but I often will say to folks, I'm like, listen, like they'll be so mad at somebody, right? And I'm like, here's the reality of my experience so far with people. They're probably not going to change. They're probably going to keep doing exactly what they do over and over again. Every now and
Mhm.
then you meet someone who's widely self-reflective and they make a shift, but by and large, they're going to do it. So, assuming they're going to keep doing that, how do we want to respond? Now, again,
Mhm.
sometimes you're in a job where the choice to do something different might cost you something financially and you're not willing to. But by and large, you'll realize, like, oh, like what we get mad about is why aren't they doing it differently? Why aren't they having my values set? Why? Because they don't. You know? And so how do we want to be with that? And I have, used that bulletproof grace to become increasingly self-protective and say, I don't have to fight that fight. That's not mine. And that doesn't mean I don't get to stand on my values, vote for the things I vote for, all that kind of thing. But I'm not going to convince them otherwise. So what am I doing putting my energy there?
100%. And it's so great to hear how you're describing it, because I think we often are faced with so many situations where it's so easy and so tempting to just be like, as if she said that, or oh, that's terrible. And I'm just thinking of all these different things. My kids are sports for one, like it can just be filled with so much drama and we see so much in the news and social media, and so much of it is just trying to get our attention. And what you're saying, and I love that visual and that analogy of wearing that suit of armor, and visualize it however you want, but like literally, like, yeah, come at me and I have the choice to allow it in, or have it bounce off. And I think that's really beautiful. And in the moment, if we have these tools, it will become easier and easier to just be like, okay, this is bouncing off, and or say, this isn't serving me, or what, I have to take a step back, or mute the social media, or whatever it is in that moment, not get sucked in, which
Well, and I
can be
think
really easy.
like I still get sucked in, right? So
Sure.
it's just like recognizing not enough's not going to get out of our life. Noticing those hooks are still going to be there to pull me out of my energy lane. What I've gotten better and better at going, oh my goodness, honey, there you went again. Look at you.
Mm-hmm.
God bless you. You think you could change the whole world just by convincing them verbally? Probably not the way that's going to happen, right? So I can choose to regroup, catch a wind, blah, 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 blah. But the other thing that struck me as you're talking is one of my very concrete steps that has made a huge difference is also connecting to other people who have this same emerging sense, right? Because again, just like you, I see a lot of things in the world that are very, very upsetting to me. And it doesn't mean I'm not going to make a stand for it, vote with my dollars, do whatever I need to do to do the things that matter. But at the same time, like I feel like the best thing I can do is not buy into that narrative also. Like what's been emerging for me lately is realizing how much that's distractive, destructive use of my energy, because the
Mm-hmm.
energy that takes me to trying to like convert a narcissist or someone with values is energy I could be using to connect with someone like you, to build community, to go, oh my goodness, I am not alone. There are many people who have values around love, caring, connection, all of these things that really matter. And if I keep jumping outside of my energy lane, I'm not going to be, providing my own radiance and connecting with other people who are doing it the same way. And I think that's a lot of what a lot of the negative forces in our lives are terrified of. And I have realized that even for myself is people get very uncomfortable when I say a small no. They get comfortable when I take up space. They get comfortable when I'm not invisible and accommodating and all that kind of thing. And again, I don't need to do it with anger and violence, but that is my, big revolution. That is my big moment is like, you go live your values, but guess what? Out here, there is a whole network of people in our planet who love and care and have very good values. And I'm going to spend my energy amplifying theirs, allowing them to amplify mine, right? But that has been a deliberate new era of my life in the last 3 years. And some of that means some old friendships fall away that felt like they'd be there for forever, but they just aren't a fit anymore. And then there's these surprising new ones that you might meet someone for a millisecond and you're like, I feel like I've known you my whole life. I feel like, I want to be the wind beneath your wings. You're going to be the wind beneath mine. Like I could tell story after story very practically of how this has happened in my life to the point where the abundance of it is very difficult to deny. in the most surprising ways. And so, again, those things happen and I notice them and I can amplify as I stay in my energy lane, as I let that bullet bounce off. But if I get distracted and I'm fighting on someone else's battlefield, I'm usually trying to prove something, make them someone else, etc. I don't have the energy to do what I'm here to do. And I think that's, I don't mean to be so, down about it, but like, I think that's an intentional distraction on the part of other folks, conscious or unconscious. And so I'm working to, have my own revolutionary stand, which is valuing the peace, the protection, the connection, the caring, all those kinds of things. And if it doesn't work for others, that's their choice, but I don't need to do anything about it.
This really resonates with me so much, Barbara, because I feel like, yes, so many people are addicted to the stress and the chaos and just that cortisol and just it is self really, like, that spiral is really easy to get into. However, when you are doing the things like what you've been discussing and staying in your energy lane and having that bulletproof grace and understanding what your values are and recognizing that there are so many people who share in that versus the drama and the stress and the chaos, it really opens you up to so much more, which is, has happened in my life as well. And it's not a bad thing, but it can feel like a loss, right? Like you're losing what was part of you, a part of your life. There is a death of that old person. But I think when we can release it with love, release the friendships with love and understand, that friendship or that role, that job that served me at that point in my life. And now I've grown and now I've learned. And it's bringing you to where you are now. It's just so beautiful. And it's making me feel emotional because I think that's the whole point.
Yes.
However,
yeah.
What I wanted to ask you, because I think is really important. This is a self-improvement podcast, and this is parenting and spirituality, but you do talk about avoiding the seduction of self-improvement, which I think is really important to talk about because many of the listeners of the Juggle is Real, we are high achieving, we have very full schedules, we are busy women, and we have a lot on our plates. And oftentimes we do want to continually grow and get better and do more. And I just had a birthday, and like I was just trying to think about, what do I want to do in this year, and how do I want to grow, and all of these things. And all I could think of was like, how content and how satisfied I am right now, and how can I feel into that? And I'm not saying that I don't want to continue learning and growing and being, but I also don't want to, especially on this podcast, try to convince people that they're broken and they have to fix themselves. And so can you talk to us about how we can avoid, trying to fix ourselves while still leaning into a space of growth and continually learning?
I love that you asked this question, and I may get teary talking about it too, because I spent decades of my life in personal development. It's what I did for a living, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I still strongly believe in it, but the context matters so much. And this is what I kind of wish somebody had told me, right? So the dark side of the self-improvement is when it becomes a translation to my not enoughness. And too much of mine was, right? Now, again, there were still beautiful things that weren't, but when it's, really trying to stay on that cycle of I'm going to be more conscious than the next person. I'm just on that same ladder of comparison. It's just rather than, money that I'm achieving consciousness. I'll be better, smarter, da 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 da. Right? And it's a booby prize, you realize. Like it is still superiority on top of inferiority. It's still me trying to prove myself and scramble so that then I can make sense of it, right? And what I found is like I love the parts of like so many of parts of me are self-improving now at a more rapid rate than when I had my personal development goals at the same way, right? But it's because it's a softer invitation. It is a context at which it says, you know what, you, Barbara, are absolutely, divinely, magnificently amazing right now. And if you changed nothing, and again, this is where I'll get teary, like, that is fantastic. We celebrate you. Whatever it is, we are having a dance at just the magnificence of your being and that you chose to come do this experience and you're having it. Like, that's great. Out of that space, I can choose all kinds of adventures. I can choose adventures of self reflection and learning about myself through other people. I can do therapy. I can do workshops. I can do songs. I can do acupuncture. I can do all of those things from that space. And it's just adventure, right? But it's when I come at it, which is kind of what I was, all of a sudden I was just adding more to dos to my to do list. I've got to be more conscious. I've got to be more organized. I've got to, like, my vision for my body is this. My vision for my life is this. Da da da. I still have those visions, but they're a gentler emergence rather than a to do on my list. And what I have found is the more that and I love how you just expressed that, like, you're satisfied right now, like, as a vision in itself for the year, you're allowed to sink into that and to allow it to, like, seep into your DNA. That is enough in itself. And what I have found is when I do that, I actually achieve, quote unquote, more. When
Mm-hmm.
I launched this business, it's been just about 3 years. Since then, I have written a book and done a one-woman show. I had no goals, quote unquote, to do those things in that time period. It's just when I could allow myself to be present and be with me and, just really treasure and honor, it is like, holy cow, there's so much wanting to get out. But it's a very different space, right? So I feel like I am experiencing more personal growth than ever as I've continued to not make it a goal, and I think,
Mm-hmm.
again, so there's nothing wrong with it unless and until it becomes that way. And I'll give another example. I had done this meditation, kind of mail away meditation years ago with a guru. And it was lovely because, I'm somebody that always knew, oh, meditation's good for me, but I never quite, would do it. So I had followed this, I think it's 12 weeks or something. I'd followed it. I did everything as it was supposed to be done. And then all of a sudden I was waking up every morning and there was, a certain order that you did everything, et cetera. And all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, I'm dreading this. Like, this is one more structure in my life. And, like, hang on, how did I get here? This was a lovely thing to explore, but now it has become a rigid to do that if I don't do it, I'm obviously not enlightened enough. I'm not whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And the radical idea that has been just like swimming in my DNA, in the last time period is no, actually, like, my consciousness, my spirituality, my existence, all of the beautiful things that mattered to me all along, they are more alive than they have ever been before. But I get to make the rules. I get to break the rules. I get to change my mind moment by moment as I deeply tune into myself and what it's calling me to do. And so, to this point, I think the idea of self awareness, the idea of growing are beyond beautiful. It's the motivation and the context behind it. Am I doing it because I'm not good enough as I am? That's problematic. Am I doing it so that I can be superior to other people? That's problematic. Am I doing it because that is part of the radiant, magnificent self that's expressing itself? Well, holy cow, that's wonderful, right?
Yes, I love that. And it's easy to get lost in it, but I think with the work that you're doing and the awareness that you're bringing to people, I think it's so beautiful to let everyone know that, like, you are enough now, and we can continue to grow and do the things that we want to do, as long as we know that no matter what, we are good. Like, you're good.
Yes. I was just thinking, like, why I love podcasts like this, like, I don't think they should go away. I think they should multiply, right? Because what it allows us to do is really experience people and their journey and their authenticity, as long as it doesn't become, something we're supposed to do. So for me, I have probably listened to, gotten exposed to more amazing people and podcasts in the last year than I ever had before. But it's like I get to have it wash over me and see what's there for me. And there's even, I'm sure you've experienced this also, there's times in your life where, like, things I got exposed to 5 years ago that just weren't a fit then, but now are a fit. Or an insight I had
Mm-hmm.
that just, I didn't have the readiness for it in that way. And now it's here. So to immerse ourselves in possibilities and adventures, I think is fantastic. Again, assuming they don't become a measuring stick of us being good enough.
So good. Earlier when you were talking and you were sharing about your daughter who's now a teenager, and I got so emotional because I've often thought that, and my own mom was trying to convince me at that age, like, you are perfect and you are just phenomenal, and it was difficult to see that, and it was challenging because of everything else that we were exposed to. um as we are closing out, I would love to hear your thoughts on, if you could go back to your younger self, the younger Barbara, hustling and trying to prove yourself to everyone around you and, do things right and fix yourself. What would you whisper to her about being enough? Like, what would you say, and what can we share, and what can we say to ourselves to really understand this concept?
Well, I love how you just phrased that and said that, because what I realize, again, my kids are older now, so I have teenagers. Like, it doesn't matter what I say to them. I'm well aware of that. Like, it can't, because they're on their own journey. And if I think back to that girl, I know that if I were to go back and say those things, she wouldn't listen. God bless her. Like, that's just not what her journey was, right? But I love what you said about whisper. If I could go back, first of all, I just put her in my lap and I would
Mhm.
just hold her, right? I would
Yeah.
not tell her she has to do or think anything. I would just be with her in the way that I
Mhm.
know to be with myself right now, right? So the more that I can hold that space for myself, even at this place in my life, the more I'm available to hold that for other people. And I'd go back and I'd hold her in my lap. I would be the enough for her. I would just hold space for her. And
Mhm.
the whispering in the ear, it would be like, just don't believe the story, honey. Like, and this is what I think about to what you were just saying. Like, when I'm trying to fight somebody else's battle, I'm buying into not enough's narrative. And I say it's like he is, putting on the rock music so loud so that we can't hear the other voice. And I would just say, don't believe it. Like, you're great. Da, da, da. I would just like whisper those same things, and whisper. I love that you picked that word, because knowing, like, cognitively at that space, I couldn't have heard it and registered it and done any of it, but it would have been another track in my voices available to me when I was ready to make those choices. And that's what I try to hold with my kids right now. Like, I can't go back and know these things. I can't, all I can do is live my version of it right now. And hopefully that's a model. But I find myself more able to just be than I was before. And that's what I would want to go back. I would just want to, almost like a wonderful grandma does, I'm just going to sit with you, see you, know a lot of life is there to happen. And however it lands, it's all okay.
Well, I'm in tears.
Me too, crying off my mascara.
Oh, yeah. And um this conversation has been just so beautiful, and it's been such an honor and really a privilege to talk to you, Barbara, and to learn from you. And this book, and I'm holding it up right now, Enough, it truly is beautiful. Finding peace in a world of distractions, hustle, and expectations. Where can we find this book? Where can we follow you? How can we get more of this beautiful, beautiful work that you're doing?
Lovely. It's available on online booksellers, so Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, etc. Um, but if you want to learn more about the book itself, I have a URL, beenough.com. And if you click on that, it goes to a landing page within my website. And I have a little weekly inspiration I set up. Like, if you just want that quiet little reminder once a week that people can sign up for. And then my overarching website is corluma.com, corluma.com, which is funny because I picked that before this journey of enough. But core means heart, luma means light. And so even though it's maybe in business settings or all different kinds of things, it's the same thing, right? It's like bringing that heart and light and truth and presence to whatever we're doing. But yeah, beenough.com.
Beautiful. Well, wishing you so much love and light as you continue on your journey. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been a total honor.
Oh, I had to go grab a Kleenex and wipe my eyes. Just feeling really, really grateful to have had this conversation and feeling really hopeful and so optimistic that, this love and this light that we've been talking about is really going to seep its way through in all of the cracks that are in this world, that are in our lives, and in the situations that we find ourselves in. So glad that we had this conversation with Barbara. And of course, definitely visit the links in the notes for this podcast episode. Get the book Enough, Finding Peace in a World of Distractions, Hustle, and Expectations. It truly is a beautiful reminder that we are all good, we are enough, and we are worthy exactly as we are. And if you liked this episode, definitely share it with a friend, someone who needs to hear this message as well. And rate the episode, write me a review in Apple Podcasts. This is how other people can see the episode and find it and listen and get all of this beautiful information themselves. And definitely make sure that you're subscribed, whether it's on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever platform you listen on. Come on back. We've got so many great episodes in store. Thank you so much for being here. I love you so much. Take good care.